Yeah, now I'm just going to keep all that in order. All right, here we go, folks. I promised I'd be back. And here we are, back at the comfortable confines of the EIB Southern Command. Rush Limbaugh at 800-282-2882 if you want to be on the program. And the email address, lrushbaugh@eibnet.com. When we were last together, on Friday of last week, it was Friday, right? You know, this is a 3-day weekend, but it really seems like it's been a long, long weekend. It seems like it's been a long time since I've been here. I was only in L.A. for 2 days, essentially. Anyway, when we last were together, John Conyers had failed to muster enough legal signatures to be on the ballot to serve another term in Congress that would total 52 years. And I said that when they appealed this and we're going to take it to a judge, I said, don't sweat it, folks. If you're a Conyers fan in Michigan, they'll find a judge to say that he's going to be. I got emails. I was out on the golf course Friday afternoon. For you, stick to the issues, people. I was 2 under after 6 at Sherwood Country Club Friday afternoon after the program. 2 under after. I was playing out of my mind. And then I got bad advice on the 7th hole. And I lost my momentum. Still shot a great score, so 82 or something. But it was like an out-of-body experience. Could not do anything wrong. Anyway, started getting emails out there. You were right. You predicted it. Conyers. They found a judge. He's on the ballot. Right here it is. Just wanted to mention this to you. It's not a big deal in the big scheme of things, considering the other news items out there. I just wanted to let you know that yet another prediction made by your host came true within minutes of it being made. Federal judge threw John Conyers a political lifeline Friday, ordering the Michigan Democrat onto the August 5th primary ballot because his lawsuit to overturn a Michigan election law is likely to succeed. And that's because it's going to be found to be unconstitutional by an obliging liberal judge, even though the states are specifically granted the right to run their own elections by the Constitution. They found a federal judge, and John, I can't tell you, I was just overloaded with people sending him, you were right, you were, it didn't even take an hour. Okay, the kid in Santa Barbara, Isla Vista. Everything that has happened since is utterly predictable. Everybody on the left is taking another real human tragedy and converting it into a political issue, the purpose of which is to advance their political agenda. In this case, get rid of the Second Amendment and confiscate everybody's guns. And they're all out there in unison. They're trying to make the case that this is another instance where, never mind that the first 3 deaths were by machete. Never mind, maybe not the first 3, but never mind that the guns were not used for all of the deaths. We still got to get guns out of the hands of people. If you do that, this would never have happened. Now, I know as much about this as you do, maybe less, actually, than you do, because I've not been absorbed with it, because I think I understand it. What could go wrong here? You've got an estranged mother and dad. The dad produces oddball movies like The Hunger Games, and as a side hobby takes photos of nude women's bare rear ends in exotic locales around the country. You didn't know that? You didn't know that? Why, they're in art galleries. This guy takes black and white, for the most part, artsy photos of nude women from the rear, focusing on their butts. One's in front of the Taj Mahal in the pool. Another, they're all over the place. This guy has got it, and that's his art, the guy's father. The kid was in therapy since age 8. What did the kid believe? The young man believed that everybody was getting some. He believed that everybody was just having a life of pure, total hedonism. He believed that everybody was telling the truth about all the fun they were having. He believed that he was missing out on everything and that everybody he knew, everybody else, was just getting the most out and roll, and then some more sex, and after that some more sex, and throw in a little bit more rock and roll, and he wasn't getting any. And so he started blaming women, particularly blondes, and others. You know, I have, and I don't know that this is going to be a factor in this, and even if it is, I don't know that you're ever going to be able to establish it. One of the things that's really bothered me, I've mentioned this before, one of the things that there's been a yellow flag about all this social media. There are two things about people vomiting everything about themselves on Facebook and Twitter, MySpace, whatever it all is. The first thing that concerned me was people were volunteering to give away every bit of privacy they had. Why? Because they all wanted to be famous. They want, it's not past. There's so many people, particularly young people using social media, want everybody to know everything about them. They want to be famous. The second thing, and this is the real problem here, the second thing is that I worried about is people, so I think half the people or more on these social media sites exaggerate a bit about all the fun they're having. I know that when I was in high school, we had a saying. My dad taught me this. I'd go home from school and I'd tell him all the guys were saying about things they did. This was actually a fight over homework. I said, Dad, I don't want to do it. My friends aren't doing it. They're out every night. Son, don't believe them. All these guys bragging to you about what they're doing, the fun they're having, they're not having it. They wish they were. They want you to think they are. But the people that talk about it are the ones not doing it. The people you need to pay attention to are the people that keep it close to the vest. The people that don't tell you what they're doing, the people that don't brag, they're the ones getting things done. That's what my dad always told me. And I've found that in my life, he wasn't universally correct. I mean, there were some braggarts who were actually doing it. But in many cases, he was right. And particularly when it was men bragging about sex. I can't say the number of guys I knew growing up that were bragging about all the sex they were having, and it was simply a dream. They wanted everybody to think it, but they couldn't get past first base any better than this kid could. And the ones who weren't talking about it were the ones that you learned later on that were the studs. And they weren't talking about it because of manners, self-respect, respect for girls involved, who knows what but they just, I found that life lesson when I was young to be true. So I've thought maybe it's carried forward. It's a changing culture. It's a changing planet, changing country. I don't know if it's still applicable as much today as it was. But it used to be elementary, basic part of human nature. And that's why all this social media and all this bragging that was going on out there, in addition to these kids volunteering to give away all their privacy, I thought that one of the potential downsides was people like this kid reading about all this fun everybody's having, which they really weren't having. They were lying about it. And it's going to create inferiority complexes. It's going to create, in some people's minds, a misery, unhappiness. They read about all the fun their friends are having. They read all the fun people their age are having, and they look at their own lives, and they're dull and boring by comparison, when in fact they're reading a bunch of people bragging about things that really aren't happening. Everybody's simply fantasizing, or a lot of people are. So I don't know if that's the case here, but I'll bet you it's a part of it. has to be part of it. But beyond that, let's obviously there's a mental health issue here, which the left does not want to go anywhere near either, because it undercuts the gun argument. But let's say everything is normal here. Let's say everything happened here is up, and everybody in this guy's circle was doing everything they said and everything he thought, and he was the only one who wasn't. Look at the expectations what was this kid, 22? Look at the expectations he had for all that would have happened to him in his life by the age of 22. Look what he thought was going to be normal or should be. Sex anytime he wanted it. Women loving and adoring him anytime he wanted it. Women draping themselves all over him anytime he wanted it. He had his Beamer, so he's going to be the most popular kid, and he was going to have whatever he wanted at age 22. Whatever he wanted. Well, obviously things weren't normal. As I say, there's a mental health issue. But just keep a sharp eye on the left politicizing this to try to convert this into something that can advance their agenda. And they'll probably get into the socioeconomic aspects of this, too, by blaming this somehow on rigid, moralistic, and judgmental conservatives or Tea Party types. Well, how could they come up with that? Wouldn't have to come up with, just say it. Just put it out there that this kid was reacting to a puritanical judgmentalism fostered by the Bush years, so forth and so on. Because everything goes back to Bush. Well, I know the video did leave no doubt about what the kid was really all about, young man and so forth. Anyway, it captivated everybody's attention, and they finally found the blonde number one that supposedly was responsible for getting all of this going in this young guy's head. She was 10. She was 10 years old when he supposedly was rejected. You know what Woody Allen said about success? To show you how things are really, they don't change. Woody Allen said the only thing that success means is that you get rejected by a higher class of woman. That's all it meant to him. Which I thought was classic. But the kid's father, an assistant director, second unit director of the Hunger Games. And we have to now point out that there is no gun control law being currently proposed that would have stopped this shooting spree. There is not one law proposed that would have stopped this shooting spree from taking place. And no, there's no law that we've on the books now that would stop him from ramming people with his cars. No, there's no law about stabbing people. There's no law on the books currently that would stop people from stabbing other people if they want to. By the way, have you seen any Hunger Game movies? Do you know what they're about? What do you mean, vaguely? You don't know what they're about? What? Dawn, do you know what the Hunger Games movies are about? Well, how would you describe the Hunger Games movies? As a general theme, what would you say they're about? This is crucial. This is what this guy's dad did. Teenagers killing other teenagers. It's a survivalist game. Doesn't matter why they're being forced to, but they're still doing it. Being forced to, well, this kid might say he was forced to by societal pressure. Right? Some of them are adults, but it still involves killing. Why not blame Hollywood movies here? We can never, ever go there.
They used to get away with it, but not anymore.
So 23 teenagers get killed and one survives each game. That's what it's about. I don't know how they stock the movie with stars. They must kill the extras. Somehow the stars survive. In the first movie, 2 survivors are allowed to live. I fell asleep. I think they had to keep 2 stars alive for the franchise. Anyway, that's what the kid's father did. He was an assistant director, 2nd unit director for the Hunger Games. Not that matters, of course. And the woman's butt that he was photographing is his 2nd wife. Not that any of this matters. We're just stocking you with information so that you can decide yourself. From Nigeria, there's news, ladies and gentlemen. Top Nigerian military officials said today that the government knows the whereabouts of several hundred kidnapped girls, but they cannot reveal their location. And they cannot use force to rescue them, according to the website of the Ogun State Television Service. The good news for the parents of the girls is that we know where they are, but that we cannot tell you, said the Air Marshal Alex Bade, the government's chief of defense staff, was quoted telling a group of visitors at his office in the capital, Abuja. He reportedly told the group, just leave us alone. We're working to get the girls back. In fact, let's go to the audio soundbites. This is yesterday in Nigeria, and it's Nigerian chief of defense, Alex Bade, speaking about the search for the girls.
We want our girls back. But I can tell you, we can do it. Our military can do it. But where they are held, can we go with force? No. If we go with force, what will happen? So nobody should come and say the Nigerian military does not know what it is doing. We know what we are doing. We can't go and kill our girls in the name of trying to get them back.
Were you able to understand that? Let me get the transcript here, and I'll tell you what he said. There was crowd noise. He's outdoors. We want our girls back, crowd murmurs, but I can tell you we can do it. I admit we can do it. But where they are held, can we go with force? Crowd says no. Bade, if we go with force, what will happen? Crowd dead. Bade, so nobody should come and say the Nigerian military does not know what it is doing. We know what we are doing. We can't go in and kill our girls in the name of trying to get them back. Now, the United States sent 80 uniformed personnel to Chad last week, and this Alex Bade makes no mention of them. And we sent a drone force, essentially a drone unit. One drone, we've got 40 people that operate the drone unit, and the other 40 were to provide security for the 40 doing the drone programming and all that. And they were in Chad. So the bottom line is that the Nigerian government has told everybody that they know where the girls are, but they can't tell anybody where they are because they don't want anybody going in there with force to get them out because force won't work, and he just wants everybody to leave them alone. No mention of the hashtag. I was waiting for Alex Bade to, if they can't go in with the use of force, because that would not be good. Could they go in showing the hashtags? Could they have their kidnap recovery people go in, each of them holding the hashtag, bring back our girl? Would that help? We're being set up, or we're being prepared for a swap. Ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to the kidnapped Nigerian girls by Boko Haram, remember, as you digest anything new about this story, what you have to not forget, keep in mind, is that the regime, the United States regime, blames the Christian Nigerian government for this. Mrs. Clinton, Barack Obama, the administration would not list these people as a terrorist organization, even though they are al-Qaeda sympathizers and have wreaked al-Qaeda-type terror. But the regime, which has a pacifist and appeasement policy with all terrorists, it seems, wants to take the occasion to blame the Christian Nigerian government for creating this group in the first place with their oppression of non-Christians and their oppression of Islamists and their economic oppression of the population. And so this is the I guess, the modus operandi. It's maddening. It's frustrating. And it's wrapped up in this belief. And if we'll just be nice to them, if we just show them that we mean them no harm, if we show them that they'll just stand down, they'll stop being bad, they'll stop doing mean things to people. The people on the left really believe this. Well, some of them do. Others realize that it's simply a way to continue the whole agenda blaming America for everything in the world, which it's like, the immigration. I was discussing affirmative action. I'll get back to Nigerian girls here. Something just sparked my little neuron synapses firing here in my plentiful gray cells. There's an aspect to illegal immigration that really doesn't get talked about much, but it is just as crucial to the Democrat Party as is their need for a permanent underclass. Now, on the surface, the Democrat Party's need for a permanent underclass would seem to be economic, as long as there are a never-ending growing number of people dependent on the government, then it is said and wisely believed that this translates to power for the Democrat Party. And if you look at polling data, you'll find that most of the illegal immigrants that arrive in this country are big believers in socialism and big government. They are not a natural constituency for the Republican Party. But there is a second reason why the pro-immigration forces on the left want to keep that train of illegals flowing into the country moving. And I don't think the Republican establishment stopped to think about this. If the Republican establishment is also of the same mindset on this aspect of it, then that is not, I don't even want to contemplate that. But what is the second reason? Go back to this affirmative action. We were talking on this program some time ago about it, and I made mention of the fact that back in the 70s, when I was in Kansas City, I did a quasi talk show, took phone calls between records, because the station was short on its commitment to the community, programming to the community in order to get the license renewed. So they chose me to take phone calls from the public about public local issues between records, hoping to satisfy that requirement, the FCC, for license renewal. And one night, the subject or topic ended up being affirmative action. And I had a number of civil rights leaders who happened to get through that night and made a point telling me that affirmative action was never going to end. I would ask, okay, at what point are you going to acknowledge that we've made amends for what you say are these past transgressions of discrimination and bigotry and whatever against minorities? At what point, how much affirmative action needs to happen? And they said it's never going to end. There is no end to it, because the price that you must pay for what you've done. Wait a minute, I haven't done anything. And the people that you want to benefit from affirmative action haven't been discriminated against either. This all happened before you and I were born. Doesn't matter. They are the descendants, and you are a descendant. So you descended from those who owned slaves and those who believed in it and so forth, those who acted in discrimination. And I, they said, am descended from those who were slaves and who were discriminated against. And so it's never going to end. And that's when the light bulb went off for me, that this was not about making amends in the first place. Affirmative action had a totally different political objective. And it took me a while to figure out what it was. But the political objective of affirmative action is simply, it's right out in front of our face. It's been there all along. And it's still predominant today, and that is blame America. If you are a leftist, a socialist, you want to conquer this country, you want to get rid of every trace of the founding, if you want to get rid of capitalism, if you want to get rid of the whole concept of free markets and free will, what do? You have to convince as many people as possible that the country was corrupt from the very beginning. It was unjustly founded. It was founded deeply immersed in immorality and injustice and slavery and discrimination and bigotry. And you must continue leveling that charge. You must until you have succeeded in taking over the country. Well, what happens when, by way of amnesty, you import a bunch of people of color who are low-skilled and uneducated? After they're here, you can use their existence and you can point fingers of blame at the United States and say, look at what the majority is doing to these people. They don't have a fair shot. They've come here, they sought a better life, but they're still being kept down. So this influx of poorly educated, uneducated, economically poor people continues or provides a continuing opportunity for the left to accuse this country of discrimination, racial and otherwise, and it provides the recipe for never-ending affirmative action. And once you have guilted the majority, and believe me, they have, I don't know how many people like this you know, but I know a lot of them. I know a lot of people who really have bought the notion that we have to make amends, that they've been pummeled with it. And it's not that they've bought it. That's the wrong way to say it. It's that they think there are things that we can do to finally make amends and pay the price. One of those things was electing Obama, by the way. Voting for Obama was supposed to erase the notion that this nation was racist or bigoted or what have you. If a bunch of white people voted for a black man to be president, that alone would supposedly end any argument that this was a racist, sexist, bigoted country. What's happened since he was elected? It's gotten worse, has it not? By design. No, it's not maybe gotten worse. It is said to have gotten worse. Because any criticism of Obama is said to be racist. Any criticism of Obama is said to be discriminatory. And so, see, the white bigots are still there no matter what the majority does to assuage its guilt, no matter what the majority does to try to make amends, agreeing with affirmative action. It never ends, and it's never supposed to end, because for the left to fully succeed in taking over this country, affirmative action can never end. It must always be necessary. And if you are going to continue to allow via amnesty an influx of low or uneducated poor people who happen to be of color, you have an automatic, never-ending flow of examples of racism and of bigotry and of whatever ism that you want to throw out. Thereby, and if you get to the young people, low-information voters, they don't want to feel bad about themselves. They'll do whatever it takes to end that criticism, which current manifestation is let the left have what they want. Let them have what they want, and maybe they'll be happy. Just the same way we try to appease Al-Qaeda. Let them, let's criticize Nigeria, or let's criticize, let's blame our policy in Israel. Let's blame Israel. Let's don't blame them. Let's appease Al-Qaeda, and maybe they'll stop being terrorists. Maybe they won't stop being terrorists. Maybe they'll stop terrorizing us. Well, the majority in this country happens to have the same worthless policy type approach to the left in this country. Well, let's elect a black guy. Look what that'll say about us. But it doesn't say anything about us. It's not allowed to. We elect the first African-American president in our history, and what? Now the American dream is dead. The economy is in the tank. The U.S. military, God bless it. If we lose that, I really thought a lot about this over this weekend, this Memorial Day weekend. I stopped and thought about how often I literally stand up and cheer. successful military engagement. And whenever I see it in action, not in combat, I haven't seen that. Whenever I see it, I say, like this commencement speech that the former SEAL Team 6 member gave. Stanley McRaven was his name. And it was all about SEAL team training, and it just made me realize that they're just the best. What they do is just stand up and cheer whenever they show up. But now their hands are tied. Rules of engagement. In many cases, as far as the left is concerned, the U.S. military is a problem, not a solution. And that actually breaks my heart. But my point with this is we're being set up now with this Nigerian kidnapping. What's going to happen is the next hashtag is going to be something along the lines of free the Boko Haram murderers to get our girls back. That's what Bade is talking about. There's going to be a swap. For the girls back, they're going to give up some Boko Haram prisoners. I don't know whether there's going to be a hashtag for it. I was kind of making a little joke about that. But the whole notion of appeasing your enemies rather than facing them head on and dealing with them. We're dealing with that domestically here. We're dealing with it internationally in the way we deal with amnesty. I mean, get this. This is, Mark Krikorian writes about this at National Review Online the other day. There was a meeting up at the White House about amnesty, and a former Biden staffer had to point out to Republicans, there are a lot of Americans who are concerned about their own employment with the constant influx of illegals. And these people are going to have to be listened to. We had somebody on Joe Biden's staff who was further to the right than the Republicans were in this meeting on amnesty. The Republicans are so cowed. They are so PTSD. They really believe. This is so cockeyed. They really believe the only way they can ever win again is to get some Hispanic votes, and that the only way they can do that is to be for amnesty. And they don't see, it's one thing to have the economic result of a never-ending flow of people that are going to end up being constant Democrat voters because they're going to be a new permanent underclass. But the other aspect of their arrival is, to me, just as bad. You have a never-ending inflow of people of color who are uneducated, poorly educated, and don't have any money. You get them into the country. You have just expanded and continue to expand the number of people left out of the American dream. You have a whole bunch of people who are on the low end of the income gap, and that provides the left a never-ending amount of ammunition to blame America for their circumstance. They come here, they arrive uneducated, they arrive poor. Given the left's stewardship of the country, they are not going to improve themselves. They're going to become wards of the state. They become welfare recipients. They become part of the Democrat underclass, which gives that very existence allows the Democrats to blame America for their plight. And while they do that, then they continually demand more affirmative action to address the illegalities, inequalities, inequities, what have you. And it never ends. There is no way the United States can ever make amends. It's impossible. Because you keep importing people who are poor as they arrive and uneducated as they arrive. And the minute they arrive, those circumstances are blamed on America by the media, by the left, in their effort to convert this from a capitalist to a socialist country by pointing out capitalism doesn't work. Look at these people. Look at these arrivals. Look, they've come here seeking the American dream. They've come here seeking this. And this country is so discriminatory, so racist, and so bigoted. These people don't even have a chance. Why, if it weren't for food stamps, so forth, and who knows what, and Obamacare, they'd be dying. And the country gets the blame. The country has found it. So that's an unspoken aspect of amnesty that is every bit as important to the Democrats as the fact that they will have a never-ending, permanent underclass totally dependent on them, which means they win every election from here on after. IB Network and the Limbaugh Institute for Advanced Conservative Studies. Telephone number if you want to be on the program, 800-282-2882, and the email address, lrushbaugh@eibnet.com. So this amnesty business, this illegal immigration, dealing with it with amnesty is just an absolutely disastrous way of solving the problem. For those of you who are concerned that, and there is, folks, there's a battle for the heart and soul of America. There is a battle for the kind of country we're going to be. It's being waged by the people we elected in 2008 to lead this country. They are populated, that much as the regime is populated with people who believe this country is intrinsically flawed from the founding, that this country is the problem in the world. This country needs to be brought down a couple pegs. The people of this country need to find out what it's like to live elsewhere in the world. We are not legitimately a superpower. We only became a superpower because we were able to take things from other people around the world. We didn't build them. We simply marched around the world and took things and impoverished people in the process. I mean, this is what they believe, and I love America. I wish everybody did, and I hope everybody will, but we're not there now. We're dealing with a fairly large, but still a significant minority. We're being governed and led by a minority, which has the media on its side, which helps to create the impression that they're the majority. And they are still in the midst of tactics, strategic tactics designed to overtake the country, hopefully with no resistance. And the way they can do that, secure no resistance, is to guilt their opponents into basically letting them have what they want to have and do what they want to do, under the guise that this is only fair. And the Republicans are falling for this hook, line, and sinker. You've got the Chamber of Commerce and the business lobby, and they see nothing but low-skilled labor, low-wage labor, cheap labor being brought in to do work Americans won't do, that old saw. And that's as far as it goes. There is no ideology as far as they're concerned. This is strictly dollars and cents. And it's a shame that that's the case. So many people associate the Republican Party with big business and capitalism, and that's not the case anymore. It's crony socialism or crony capitalism, however you wish to define it, but it involves corporate interests getting close to whoever is in power and having success be determined by that close proximity and that degree of support and association, rather than standing for a set of principles. Now, conservatism is a set of principles, and I believe that the vast majority of this country still is populated by people who live those principles and raise their kids with those principles. But a lot of them have been made to feel guilty over this constant barrage of allegations and accusations of all the rotten things that America has done to the poor and the disadvantaged, and we need to make amends. And hello, affirmative action, and never-ending affirmative action if we get amnesty. This never-ending influx of poor, uneducated, or low-educated people, the minute they get here, they immediately fall into that category, or those categories, for which the left points fingers of blame at America. America's the reason they're uneducated. America's the reason they're poor, because of income inequality or prejudice and bigotry. And so we need more affirmative action. We need to shift the scales. We need to rebalance the scales in favor of the disadvantaged. And they all get added to whatever victim group the left wants them to be members of. And in this way, the Blame America crowd grows, and they claim to have more evidence backing up the charge that America is responsible for these poor people, that the American dream is an illusion. And it never was real. It was just a freak, sort of like a fad for a while. It was a quirk of fate, but that wasn't real. What's happening now under Democrat rule? That's what's normal. We're defining down, and we're in the midst of decline that we're trying to manage, and we're now calling it the new normal. And the more poor we import, and the more uneducated we import, the greater the need for a big government to defend and protect those people from the ravages of bigotry and discrimination and racism that is the United States. That's the belief system of the left. The only way to fight that is with competing principles, a fearless defense of this nation's founding, a fearless defense of this nation's greatness and why it became great, a fearless, factual defense of why this country became the world's lone superpower in less than 200 years. There are specific reasons for it. But a powerful United States with the identifying factor, the differentiating factor between us and the rest of the world is freedom and liberty and individualism and entrepreneurism. The left can't peacefully coexist with that. Stamp it out, make it the minority, and then blame it. Blame all of that. Entrepreneurism, rugged individualism, freedom, liberty. Governments and businesses with no regulations will run roughshod over the poor and the disadvantaged, meaning we need Democrats to protect them, and the more poor and disadvantaged we can get here, the better the case the Democrats have for what a rotten place this country is. And that's what the purpose of amnesty is. In addition to creating or providing a never-ending permanent underclass for the Democrats, people who will vote for Democrats as the stewards of big government, redistributing wealth to the poor and so forth. And if you import people who believe that's the purpose of government, and that's exactly what amnesty is. And I really believe the only way to stop this is with the principles of this nation's founding people, wherever we get them, whoever they are, but we've got to be able to proudly explain them, infectiously do so, defend them. It used to be what the Republican Party was. It used to be what it was known for. And now the left has successfully made establishment Republicans feel guilty about that. So establishment Republicans want to end the guilt. They want to stop feeling that way, and they want to, in their minds, get rid of the reasons the left can accuse them of that. So they go along with amnesty. And the one thing can't get through their heads is that no matter what they do, the Democrats are going to continue to portray them as racists and sexists and bigots, and no matter what they do. They're having too much success. They're never going to... They don't want the Republicans to really change, is the bottom line. So I think it's a crucial point. And amnesty gets talked about in the economic sense, but I think this other aspect of it is it poses even greater harm. This idea that affirmative action never ends, the idea that country is, by virtue of its founding, unjust and immoral. This is what they're trying to codify. They're trying to establish it as fact, which will give them open season on restructuring this country in their eyes, to make it something over which they have never-ending total power. And that means a loss of individual liberty and freedom. And this is where we are headed. In the meantime, how about, you remember Valerie Plame? Do you remember how you heard about her? Do you really remember how you first heard about Valerie Plame? Robert Novak, the late Robert Novak, wrote a column in which he casually mentioned that he'd been told that Valerie Plame, wife of Joe Wilson, had been over there supposedly on a mission assessing Iranian and other Middle Eastern nuclear capabilities. His wife. Supposedly Novak outed her as a CIA agent and thus destroyed her career and ruined her life and made her a target. This begot a special prosecutor, Patrick Fitzgerald, to dig deep to find out who it was that told Novak. Except by the time Fitzgerald got in gear, we already knew. It was a guy named Richard Armitage, who worked with Colin Powell at the State Department, who had outed Valerie Plame. Novak did not reveal his source at first, but it came to be known that it was Armitage who did it. A man by the name of Scooter Libby was found guilty of it in a witch hunt. And for years, the media was obsessed with who in the world would out this woman. Why, what kind of ignorance and lack of attention, what kind of arrogance could lead to people simply outing the identity of a very brilliant, it was said, very effective, just totally valuable CIA agent, Valerie Plame. Meanwhile, she and her husband were on the covers of magazines in Washington, driving around town in convertibles, not doing a thing to keep her identity secret. Richard Armitage, who was the original leaker, was never made to pay a single price for this. Scooter Libby was the target of a witch hunt special counsel. Scooter Libby, who worked for Dick Cheney, which is what made him an exciting target. They tried to get Karl Rove as well. So for, 2 years, the media couldn't let go of this. And we're talking about what a dangerous, reckless bunch of incompetents were at the Bush presidency, the Bush administration, and outing this poor woman because her husband did something that Bush didn't like, came back and said that the Iranians weren't doing nukes, or somebody wasn't. It was all about this yellow cake trip to Niger. And so it was said that the Bush administration purposely outed her name to get back at her husband, and they're both the elevator doesn't go all the way to the top. Oh, yeah, had the movie and everything. And Naomi Watts starred as Valerie Plame in the movie, and it was an absolute media frenzy. And the guy who leaked her, first thing, the leak was not that big a deal anyway, but secondly, the guy who leaked her name to Novak never, when people found out he did it, they left him alone. Because he was with Colin Powell, and they were both anti-George W. Bush. So they were on the right side as far as the media was concerned. So what happens this past weekend? Obama, in trouble with the VA, has to make a super-secret trip to Afghanistan to prove his bona fides with the military. And the White House leaks accidentally, quote-unquote accidentally, the name of the CIA station chief in Kabul. Not some analyst at Langley protected by security there, but the CIA station chief in Afghanistan, in Kabul, twice. And they were told by somebody at the Washington Post who somehow knew that the name that there was supposedly on the guest list appearing with Bush at Bagram Air Force Base. And somebody at the Washington Post recognized, hey, that's the CIA station chief, and told the regime about it. And the regime goes, and now the media, why, it's just unfortunate. It's just a momentary lapse. This leak, the CIA station chief in Kabul, this is a death warrant making his name public. And the same media that couldn't get enough of the Valerie Plame leak is treating this as just another unfortunate thing, just another unfortunate incident in a terrible year for Obama. I don't know whether they did it on purpose. I have no idea. It doesn't matter. They're just totally inept and incompetent, and it just goes to show, if you ask me, in the final analysis, they don't care that much. They really just don't care. I got to take a break, and we're going to get some of your phone calls. It's time for that. People have been patiently waiting. But we'll get to the sound bites on this, too. And we got VA stuff coming up as well. That's not over yet, so don't Valerie Plame to Bob Woodward first, a month before Robert Novak found out about it. And Armitage said, yeah, Wilson, he's mad about all kinds of stuff, and, his wife is over the agency. It was Wilson that was telling people, when you get right down to it, but the whole thing was outrageous. Scooter Libby didn't do anything. Forget that. The media couldn't let go of it. It was so bad. It was life-threatening. It destroyed this woman's life and her marriage and her world, and oh my God, it was horrible, horrible. And they let go of the name of the station chief at Kabul. And it's just, well, an accident. It's not intentional. I just didn't mean anything by it. And it's unfortunate. Name got posted in the list it wasn't supposed to. They didn't mean anything by it, blah, blah, blah. It's just sickening, this double standard that exists, because it's destructive. Here's Doug in Tampa driving. Great to have you on the program, sir. Hello.
Hello. Thank you. Thanks for taking my call.
Yes, sir. You bet.
I want to tie maybe a comment into what you were discussing earlier in your program with regard to everybody putting their life out for everyone to see. Years ago, the old cliche was the male would have a midlife crisis. I think that's kind of changed. Public media, Facebook, Twitter, different things like that. If you look at, I've seen people that have had 400, 500, 600 friends, and they visit that every day, and by the numbers, if you look at some of the people that are going on vacation, enjoying life, if you're just an average person, and it would appear that everyone is having a ball, everyone's doing
That's exactly right. Everybody's out there living this life of luxury and fame and fun, and you're not. And that's the impact social media has on you. It is a factor.
This is the station Dayton turns
in Gardnerville, Nevada. Hi, Debbie. Great to have you here. Hello.
Hi, Rush. It's good to talk to you.
Thank you. Thanks very much. I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. So I got a little upset at what you said because I think 99.999% of the time you are right. But the Hunger Games is not just about kids killing kids. When you read the whole series, it's about a revolution. It's about people, excuse me, people mad at their government who's been oppressing them and who take over and attack their government. And I actually, when I first read them...
It can't be. Hollywood wouldn't produce something like that.
That can't be.
You gotta be... Do kids kill each other in these movies?
Yes, they do, but that's not the point of the book. That's not the point of the series. The point of the series is that they finally get tired of being oppressed and they attack the government. Yeah. When you read the third book, it all comes to light, but you have to read all three. Otherwise, people get the impression it's just kids killing kids. And that's just not what it's really about.
All right, well, that's cool. If that's how you see it, I'm not going to sit here and argue with you about it.
Well, did you read the third book? Because you have to read the third book to get that. If you don't read the third book, it is just kids killing kids.
No, in fact, I'll be honest. I haven't seen 1 minute of the movie or read a book. I had somebody tell me about it, so it's not. I'm not surprised. You know, when people tell you things, what you get is their impersonation or impression of it. And so I was just passing on what I had heard. I haven't seen 1 minute of either of the movies, and I have not read any of the books.
Well, typical of any movie,
but
here's
the point. Wait a second, though. If all this came up in context to this kid running amok and what his dad does, and what did this kid do? This kid was out killing people. Do kids kill people in this movie or in the books? Do kids kill kids?
Yeah, they do, but the reason they do it is they're forced to do it to keep their district alive. If they don't go and do what they need to do, if they win, then their district gets goodies for the next year. And if they don't win, then their taxes in the back.
Okay. Look, I cannot understand a word you're saying because of the cell phone connection. But I gathered that you said before it all started jamming up was that they killed, yes, but because they were forced to, in order to save their districts, which is fine and dandy. But Debbie, thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Another Debbie, McLean, Virginia. Hello.
Hi, Raj. How are you?
Good, thank you.
I've got a third-time caller dittos for you from a Rush Babe. With my predecessor, Debbie, I like to agree with her that it's not glorifying the killing, it's criticizing it. And the whole point...
Now,
really,
wait a minute. Are we talking about the movies or the books here?
Both. In the books, it is there because it is kind of to show you how bad this government is, forcing their people, their citizens, to compromise their personal beliefs and devalue life the way they do for entertainment for the bourgeoisie capital people. And the command and control government doesn't give the people in the districts, to put in your terms, the ruling class versus the country class.
Let me try this. Let me ask you a question.
Okay.
No wrong answer. I just want to know what you think. As you watch these movies or read the books, and you imagine young people who vote Democrat and think Obama's great and love big government, as they watch these movies, are they going to be inclined to be more in favor of Democrats and big government, or are they going to think, wow, this is not good, I don't want to support government if it does this kind of thing?
Well, unfortunately, because of our education system, I don't think that they're getting the metaphor. They're seeing that, President Snow, he's a bad guy, he's the villain, and he's forcing these kids to go into this arena and kill each other, while he and his friends in power, the ruling class, get to reap all the resources from each of the districts, be it coal mining, technology, farming, livestock, textiles, lumber. They basically take the hard work of the citizens for themselves. They never have to work a day in their life. All they have to worry about is what color their hair is going to be or how much they can eat at the party and stuff, and they watch it for entertainment, kind of like Running Man, where the government controls the media and to the citizens of the capital, the ruling class, it's entertainment.
I can't talk to her.
To the country class, it's a threat and a warning for troublemakers.
I haven't seen, what is it, Running either. But let me ask you, would you describe the movies as anti-government?
Well, from like I said, I think with anything you read, you get out of it what you put into it. Just like people who read your books are looking for you to be the bad guy, I look, my personal conservative core beliefs, that's what I see. I see anti-government, the hero trying to overthrow this government, and so that way the killing can stop and they can stop the Hunger Games.
Okay, who is the hero?
Well, the main heroes are Katniss Everdeen and Peeta Mellark, who are, as you mentioned before, are the, spoiler alert, 2 survivors of the first, in the first book. And they go on and they have to kind of become a part of this system that they don't agree with. And then they, basically from the inside out, try to, have their own personal statement, own personal protest. Katniss sort of becomes a beacon of the revolution, the symbol of hope that things can change.
Let's back up. What you said, people that read my books want to look for me to be the bad guy?
Well, I mean, even with your recent books, people say they're appalled of, Rush Limbaugh wrote a children's book, and he's going to. I read some, very biased reviews, which are obvious that people, haven't read the books. They claim that you and Sean Hannity go back to change history, and that's not what you do. Obviously, I've read the books. My nephews have read the books, and you're trying to teach them the truth about what has been misinterpreted.
We're not trying. We are.
Yes, you're succeeding very well.
And frankly, the reviews have been somewhat surprisingly good to me. We got a stack and collection of. They've been amazingly good. There's wait, you got an Amazon email that mentioned? Yeah, that's true. Amazon's pitching them. Go figure. But I even read a review by some guy who just despises me, books are actually quite good. I have to admit it. They got to be hard to write. I've not seen too many of these bad reviews, but I get your point. People have preconceived notions, and they plug what they see into what they want to believe. I haven't seen any of these books or movies, and I haven't read any of the books, and I'll tell you why. The title is The Hunger Games, and then when I first heard what these movies are about, I didn't get the connection between the title. And then when I saw everybody in it winning awards, well, the hell with that. And I can't, what? Yeah, see, I'm being told, no, it's really, really good. The kids killing kids, it's just a minor part. It's not the... Right, they don't. Well, if everything I've heard so far about it, we ought to have legions of teenagers marching to the polls, voting every Democrat out of office if the movies and books are that good. And we don't, do we? What's that? Oh, well, that's just, It's fascinating to take a look at what people see. It always is amazing to me. That's why I try to keep an open mind about everybody's perception of things. I mean, here kids are killing kids. It's not a big deal. Okay. Yeah, they have to because they're being told to, and then they eventually rebel against it and they get rid of the oppressive government while they vote for one to live under themselves. Over and over again. Well, I look at polling data, and millennials are openly telling pollsters how much they hate big government. They don't like it. They think it's ineffective, and they're voting for it at the same time. Which I also understand, because I understand why they're doing it. And it all comes down to Republican branding when you get down to basics. Anyway, Debbie, I appreciate the call. Really do. Got to take a brief time out, my friend. Sit tight. Back after this. Don't go away.
The Courage to Fight.
Okay, so I just got an email from somebody I know who is 60. Don't believe what these two callers have told you. These movies are sick. They are about socialism and government control of food, and they are dystopian. Now, I think I understand this. Follow me on this. We've had two women call today who praised these books to the hilt. They're really, really good. I don't know how old those women were. I couldn't tell. It's really tough to guess based on voices. So I'm not going to. But you take somebody who was 9 or 10 years old in the 50s and take them through the 60s or teenage years. You put this movie in front of them back then, and it's a horror story. Kids killing kids just was not portrayed. War movies were. But even the war movies back then, nowhere near the realism that you get today in terms of the gore. But the idea of a movie that is entertaining, that has good in it, that shows a government making kids kill each other, unheard of. So you take somebody who grew up, their formative years were the 50s and 60s. You plug this movie, you put this movie in front of them, and I guarantee you're going to get sick. But you put the movie in front of kids today, it's just no big deal. Compared to what else they've seen, what else they've heard, what else they've been exposed to, it's no big deal. Maybe even can see themselves in it. And I find all this fascinating. It's why I have vowed that I was never going to become a fuddy-duddy. When I was 60, I was not going to look at what was going on with young people when I'm 60 and immediately put it down as trash or whatever. But I can honestly tell you that something like this would never even gotten made back in the 50s or 60s. Would you agree with that? Something like this couldn't even get made. And why? Because it's rotten. It's an absolutely horrible, worthless premise. And yet today, it's award-winning. Now, is that so hard to understand in an era where abortion occurs for the convenience of the living? I think not. There are reasons why what used to be considered coarse and taboo and not or intolerable today is considered art. I remember the outrage when Piss Christ happened. Andre Serrano, the crucifix, piece of art submerged in a jar of urine. And we were told we had to learn to appreciate. Here's the difference, folks. Or one of the differences. You put the Hunger Games or something like it, Mad Max, dystopian movies. What is troubling to me is the dystopian nature of these things. That there's no good in the world anymore. That everything's right. That everybody's corrupt and everything's sick. And no, I'm not talking about just this movie. I'm talking about if I had somebody from the current drive-by media here explaining why the Hunger Games or movies like them are winning awards, it's because this is the world people live in today, Rush. This is what life is about to them. This is what they're scared. This is what they see as possibly their future. To which I would say, why? How has that happened? It wasn't all that long ago that the future was an optimistic thing, not a pessimistic thing. It wasn't that long ago that the future, wasn't that long ago that young people couldn't wait to get out of the house, couldn't wait to strike out on their own, couldn't wait to make their own way in the world. And the reason for that was bubbling, effusive optimism, eagerness. But today there's not so much of that. There's a lot of pessimism, fear, and even dystopianism in the media that defenders of it all, well, this is what the world is to them today. This is what, well, then I would say, how did that happen? That's a shame. I mean, I know pessimism's easy. I know anybody can do it. I know optimism takes work. Optimism has always been an applied discipline. But it used to be natural. It used to be a defining characteristic of leaders and people who were otherwise inspirational. Today, it seems like people who can see the evil ahead and who can see the horrors, and they seem to carry a lot of weight, the pessimists. I don't know that that's, I would much rather have everything in life be optimistic or as much, tempered with reality. Not everything is. I'm not talking about rose-colored glasses or anything here, but a dystopian. That so many movies are dystopian. End of the world destruction. L.A. is nothing more than a giant landfill dump. The people flying around in space machines and all kinds of human debris are involved in selling them this and that. And the whole idea is to escape it. And L.A. is not going to be that. Well, no, it's not. It's not going to be.
The magic will continue on the EIB network.
This is my home.
News 95.7 and AM.
Always right, 99.7% of the time. It's a delight to have you here. Ladies and gentlemen, one and only Limbaugh Institute for Advanced Conservative Studies. Now, let me ask you a question. Let's take a look at Star Wars. Do you think that young people, when they watched Star Wars, the first three of them, back in had to be the 70s and I guess some into the 80s, you had Darth Vader, the evil emperor, you had their Death Star, and they were out to wipe out everybody who stood in their way, from little Yoda to Luke Skywalker to Princess Leia, and all of those, oddball little freedom fighter guys. Now, do you think that young people saw the Democrat Party in Darth Vader and the evil emperor and the Death Star, and that they saw Reagan conservatism in Luke Skywalker, Yoda, Obi-Wan Kenobi? I don't. If they did, then the Democrats wouldn't be having such an easy time. My only point is I finally found out who wrote these Hunger Game books and movies, Suzanne Collins, and she admits to being a far-left liberal, concerned with the environment, concerned with too much war and economic deprivation. And so I told somebody, well, she made a mistake then because her movies are real Republicans. No, they're not. That's my point. They can't possibly be. Anyway, I told Snerdley, it's amazing that you can, Snerdley said to me during the break, it's amazing that you can, you turn 60, 63 and keep an open mind and not turn into an old fuddy-duddy. But does that mean you're not going to be honest and say that the music and the movies today is absolute garbage? Some of this stuff? And I said, well, go back and look at your era. Look at Psycho and Alfie. There were all kinds of, for its day, which was just as depraved and shocking as the stuff is today. It's just relative to what your baseline is. The difference to me today, it really does boil down to optimism and pessimism. To me, Even back when I was a young people eating up whatever the media that I liked back then was, be it entertainment, books, movies, TV shows, it was all, for the most part, at the end of the day, at the end of the movie, optimism triumphed. There was no such thing as a dystopian. That didn't happen until the left got totally concerned with with nuclear weapons in the 70s and the 80s. And the Phil Donahue show and so forth, and then you had the Mad Max movies, which were a post-apocalyptic world where there was no gasoline except what you could steal. Everything, dystopia, the opposite of utopia. Dystopia is just absolute disaster, and that's the difference to me. And if you check. If you would be open-minded, if you check attitudes today, take a look at the millennials. What are they telling you? They've lost faith. American dream's over. No chance for them. Those days those are long gone as far as they're concerned. All they face is $200,000 minimum student loan debt, no job. And they're not blaming Obama. They're just down on America. The old promise of America doesn't exist for them. And I think a never-ending barrage of pessimism and dystopianism has to have played a role in that attitudinal thing. You can, look, anybody well-adjusted can go watch anything, come out of it fine and dandy. If you're well-adjusted, you can go watch the biggest horror slasher movie in the world and come out of there not wanting to go do that kind of thing to people. If you're not well-adjusted, if it fits your worldview, it's just going to confirm the pessimism, the uselessness, and so forth. That's the difference to me today. In fact, folks, this is one of the reasons why the whole notion of writing children's books on American history appealed to me, because it was an opportunity to restore. I mean, the story of this country is a fascinating story in human history. It doesn't need any embellishment, doesn't need any exaggeration. What happened in founding this country is an absolute miracle. When it comes to human history on this planet, it is just an amazing story. But you and I all know that what's happened, and not just in the education system, is the whole idea of what America stands for has been under assault for a long time when the multiculturalists came in and got control of things. And it's worked. All you need to do is look at polling data of attitudes and measure how much optimism versus pessimism there is out there. And you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. These Hunger Games books are for kids, 14 to 16. They're not for adults, but adults go watch the movies and books, and I do think that there is a real craving, sad though this may be. I think there's a real craving among many conservatives to see their values reflected in popular culture, because we've lost it. Admittedly, everybody admits we've lost it. Even Frank Rich had a piece over the weekend in the Atlantic, or New York, wherever he writes, that there's no such thing as conservative comedy. Conservatives aren't funny. Well, we've been doing comedy and humor here for 25 years. The left is who doesn't find it funny, because you can't make fun of them. See, here's the left view of comedy. Comedy can only legitimately be done if the powerless are making fun of the powerful. Therefore, the left is filled with powerless people who need a big government looking out for them. So if you start, like in my case, a homeless update, that's not humor, that's cruelty in their worldview. All these things that we did that you thought were the funniest stuff you've ever heard, nobody made fun of liberals. They don't find that funny because they look at themselves as downtrodden, the disadvantaged. They need a big government protecting them. They're all Julias or pajama-clad metrosexuals running around, and everybody's out to get them except Obama, who's there to protect them, and other Democrats. So to the left, If you're sitting around waiting, if you are a conservative and you're sitting around waiting for your values and all to be reflected in popular culture, as long as it's owned by the left, it isn't going to happen. But if you're desperate to see it, you might go watch a movie and think, aha, it's a secret conservative message. Look at that. And you're being fooled. Well, when the producer, the writer, the director, and everybody in it is a staunch ultra-liberal, then yes, it is. It damn well is the intent. No, it's for people to figure out that it's Obama, it's fine. But it's not just Obama. It's liberalism, totalitarianism, authoritarianism. George III represents tyranny. And so if you put modern words uttered by liberals in the mouth of George III, the message is to convey what tyranny is to young readers. Well, I don't know President Snow from President Frost, because I haven't seen these movies, and now you're making me so mad about this, I don't care that I want to. But I'm almost obligated to now. What does Hunger Games have to do with it? Why did they call it Hunger Games? It's obviously not about games, and it's not about hunger. They don't have enough food to eat. Oh, so they kill people in order to have enough food to eat. They don't kill people? Oh, see, they do kill people, but that's not the point, Rick. That's not the point. They kill people, kids kill kids, but that's not the point. You can't look at it. Apparently no food stamps in Hunger Game dystopia. No food stamps. You got to kill. You got to kill to eat. That's the way it was in the caveman days. Fred Flintstone and the boys. They didn't have food stamps. They didn't have social security disability. Hell, they had to conquer dinosaurs and ride the things to be able to move stones around. But no, seriously, the reason that the history books seem so just natural to me. I am an optimist. I always have been, and there's no earthly reason, if you look at my life, why I shouldn't be. If I were a pessimist, boy, what a mistake that would be, given the blessed life that I've had. So I'm an optimist. I believe in optimism and happy endings and stuff. They're possible, but I don't think there's a whole lot of that now. I think because the modern definition of reality is dystopia. The modern definition of reality is how everything sucks. I'm telling you, it wasn't that way when I was growing up, and I am not being a fuddy-duddy. I'm just trying to chronicle some of the differences, and how much impact they have on people. I still may, if you're self-adjusted, well-adjusted, all this crap in the world is not going to affect you. But look at this kid. And his $40,000 Beamer. He was not bad looking. There's a lot of this stuff I don't understand. It didn't look like, and they said he had Asperger's disease or whatever it is. I've known some people with that can't function. That's worse than, it's similar to autism, but I mean, you've got to be kid gloves around people who have that disease. It doesn't take much to have them just go off, and so you have to kid glove everybody. It's terrible. I don't know that this kid supposedly had that. And then folks, it's also true that there's just plain bad people out there. No matter what you do, it's just evil is out there. And no amount of gun control or caring or concern, no number of hashtags is going to stop it. But see, that reality is overlooked, and these events like this are all rolled into the dystopian nature the left presents everybody, this overall pessimistic view. And they benefit from it, is the point. Things are so bad, You need your big government run by us to protect you from all of this horror that's out there that this country has become. It's insidious to me. And I think this country story is amazing. And I think it's optimistic. I think it's uplifting. The story of this country and our founding fathers is some of the greatest inspiration people can expose themselves to. Now it's time for an obscene profit break here at the EIB network, so sit tight. We'll be back and continue right after this.
Rated the #1 talk radio.
Edge of societal evolution. You know what I thought I'd do? I thought I'd go to some popular liberal website and just put in a search term Hunger Games, see what I got. And that's what I did. I went to the Huffing and Puffington Post. And I entered Hunger Games as a search term. And I found a headline to a story on the Hunger Games movies at the Huffing and Puffington Post. You want to know what it says? The Hunger Games and the Death of Winner-Take-All Capitalism. So at the Huffing and Puffington Post, they clearly watched the Hunger Games and they were cheering it. This is the greatest thing for socialism we've ever seen. Why, this thing destroys free market capitalism. Now again, I haven't seen these flicks, I haven't read these books, so I'm a little bit of a disadvantage. I could fake it, like many hosts would lie to you and claim they've seen it. Just keep not. I haven't, don't care that I haven't seen them yet. I can still discuss it. I just think it's fascinating. I got all these people telling me today, Rush, this is a secret message. The conservatives, boy, this is Hollywood really ripping into big government. And here's a big government website saying it's the best movie for their view that they've ever seen. And how about this the death of winner-take-all capitalism? Capitalism is not winner-take-all. Liberalism is. Liberalism is where everybody's poor except the Fidel Castros of the world. It's just the exact opposite. Anyway, back to the phones. People patiently waiting. Jeremy, Seattle, Washington. Great to have you on the EIB network. Hello.
Hey, Rush. Good to talk to you. So my point is, I think the media just love to take their lobs and hit them out of the park. They can ask the easiest questions of all, which is, if there was no gun, could he have committed this crime with a gun? Of course he couldn't have. But that's tough questions like, what kind of medication
Whoa. Yes, he could have. He did commit this crime with machetes and knives.
No, I understand that, but he didn't commit the gun part of it with it. All I'm saying is, they don't ask the questions about the person, about what's actually going on inside. They don't ask, what if he would have been taught abstinence, and that abstinence could have led to a really fulfilling relationship with a wife or partner? How much pornography did he have on his laptop, on his computer? How much time would his parents actually spend with him growing up? How much time did he spend with a nanny, somebody that didn't really care for him, was just paid to be with him? They ask no questions that actually get to the heart of why somebody would make a decision to devalue human life the way this person does.
If I were a liberal host and you had just called with that very point, you know what I would say to you? Who gives you the right to judge? How do you know he was messed up? How do you know he wasn't justified? How do you know that this isn't what he thought was best? How do you know? What gives you the right to judge everybody? And then hang up on you.
And I wouldn't have anything to say to that. I would just say that I'm just asking, why don't they even ask the question?
Well,
they don't care. And everything that you were just talking about, the dystopian society, why these people are calling and saying, oh no, I see something conservative in it, leads to exactly what it is. They don't care. Everybody sees whatever they want to see in it. People used to talk about C.S. Lewis's Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe and say, oh no, it's a picture of God and this. And C.S. Lewis himself said, no, that's not what I wrote it. I wrote it as a fun book, and yeah, maybe it pulls from things, but I didn't write it as that. And I think when people try to see what they want to see in something, and then imagine that everybody else is going to see it, it removes from them the responsibility to talk to somebody about it, the real things. They just think that somebody's going to watch a movie and all of a sudden become conservative is ridiculous.
I get your point, but in this era, those questions are never going to be asked. They're considered too controversial. They're irrelevant. They're judgmental, and especially your point about abstinence. I mean, the thing about abstinence, let's say in preventing AIDS or unwanted pregnancy, abstinence works every time it's tried. Every damn time it works. It prevents unwanted pregnancy. It prevents sexually transmitted diseases. It prevents HIV, but you don't dare say so. And you know why you don't dare say so? Because it's silly, it's stupid, it's old-fashioned, and it's unrealistic. What do you mean, abstinence? Kids are going to have sex, and we can't stop it. We better find a way to make it as safe as we can. So you take that cucumber to school and get a balloon and show them how to use a condom. And then most boys can say, cucumber, what's that supposed to be? Because it doesn't look like a cucumber to them. We wish it did, but it doesn't. Well, I'm the mayor of Realville. Now, that's the point. He was abstinent. What Jeremy's point here is, it's real simple. If he had been raised with the idea that not being promiscuous was good for him, then he wouldn't be jealous of all these people saying how much they're getting every day and night. But you can't, that's just so old-fashioned and unrealistic. I mean, abstinence, kids are going to do it. You can't stop them. And just like when Nancy Reagan just say no with drugs, I mean, that was laughed out of town. And so was abstinence laughed out. But his only point was, if he'd had a couple of parents that said, son, you're going to be better off in the long run. It's going to have more meaning to you later on. Maybe he wouldn't have gone off the deep end. Who knows?
This is the station Dayton turns to first for live team coverage of breaking.
And it got so bad that it was even worse than what it was accepted to be. And how did that happen? Do you remember, ladies and gentlemen, at the early days of Obama trying to sell Obamacare, he went out and blasphemed doctors, particularly surgeons. He accused private sector doctors, surgeons, of putting their pocketbooks before the health of their patients. They did unnecessary amputations because they could pocket $30,000. Remember all that? He went through a litany of things. People that did amputations or took out an appendix unnecessarily or what have you. He really ripped into private sector doctors as just evil profiteers, performing unnecessary medical procedures because they could get a lot more money for those. Well, isn't that exactly what the bureaucrats at the VA did here? That's got everybody up in arms. I mean, they didn't amputate limbs or take out tonsils to line their pockets, but they let human beings die and monkeyed around with waiting lists in order to earn their bonuses. It may have been bad forever at the VA, but you didn't have 40 people on a special waiting list dying. And why did they die, and why were they on a waiting list? It's because the VA was overwhelmed, and they had to do something to show that the names had been moved through the system, so they came up with super secret waiting lists that they put people on, and those people never got seen. They didn't get in to see a doctor. This greedy, heartless doctor narrative was used very effectively by Obama to get Obamacare passed. He ginned up a bunch of hatred and suspicion of private sector doctors. It was deliberate. It was vicious. It was just as bad as, if you like your policy, if you like your doctor, you can keep them. That was a huge lie. So the greedy, heartless bureaucrat narrative is what happened here at the VA. And I find it fascinating that exactly what he accused private sector doctors of doing was happening in his own bureaucracy. And I think when news of this hit, it was so bad, so below what had been normal. You know, VA might have been bad in the past, but they didn't lie about massive numbers of deaths, and they didn't keep separate sets of books, all for the purposes of securing bonuses. And I'm not saying this to excuse what had gone on in the past, but I mean, caller had a legitimate question. Why now? Why all of a sudden now? You can ask that about pretty much anything going on in the country. Why now? Because it is such. It's so bad now. These 6 years have been a horror story for this country, for the economy, foreign policy. I mean, it is really is starting to add up now. These are, and the media just chalks this stuff up. Well, you know, it's just an accident that we outed the CIA station chief in Kabul. Here, grab soundbite number 3. We have a little montage here. You know, poor Scooter Libby, Valerie Plame, was sitting at a desk in Virginia. Her husband outed her, and then Armitage outed her to Bob Woodward, who couldn't believe what he was hearing, and then Novak ends up outing her in his column, and she ends up being famous and having movies and books written about her and so forth, and Scooter Libby gets found guilty for leaking her when he didn't have anything to do with it. The regime comes along and outs the station chief, the CIA station chief in Afghanistan. The media treats it like a little side note.
The White House accidentally blowing the cover of the CIA's top officer.
The CIA's top officer had his cover blown, accidentally.
The White House mistakenly identified the CIA's top officer.
The White House mistakenly blew the cover.
The White House accidentally revealed the identity.
The White House inadvertently released the name.
Accidentally revealing the identity of the top CIA officer.
The White House accidentally leaked the identity.
That is a big blunder.
Big intelligence blunder.
This was a colossal one.
The White House quickly fixed its error.
And a big oops from the White House.
You can't fix the error. What's this poor guy gonna do? He's just been outed. And there are pictures of him now in addition to his name. He was up there with Obama. Here's Jonathan Martin. Let's see, the New York Times talking with John King at CNN this morning on CNN's New Day, the Inside Politics segment. And here's the conversation they had.
Keystone Cops element to this. Is this just a second-term mistake? Is it some tired military person in Afghanistan?
It does strike me as when it rains, it pours, that these guys are just going through a rough patch. And even a sort of feel-good event to go and support the troops, they can't even do that without something going wrong.
Oh, yeah, such a shame. It's just, you know, when it rains, it pours. Man, it's just so unfortunate. It's so sad. It's so poor Obama. He's trying so hard. He's so smart. Oh, God, he's so smart. Yeah, man, victimized once again by stupid idiot underlings. Wow, it's just, man, when it rains, it pours. Here's John Bolton. He was on Fox this morning. Bill Hemmer said, look, others contend the Valerie Plame incident was similar when she sent her husband to Africa to investigate some claims of evidence that Saddam was doing something nefarious. So her name goes public. Is it a fair comparison, John?
No, I don't think so. I mean, Valerie Plame's name was made public by Rich Armitage, Secretary Colin Powell's deputy, and then resulted in some very unfair treatment of a lot of other people in the Bush administration, like Scooter Libby. But that was just a malicious piece of gossip. This is utter incompetence. There is no justification for this. There's no explanation for it. It's like there's nobody in charge at the White House. I think it's a problem that runs through Obama's administration. Who is in charge on these things?
They don't care, is the bottom line. This is so beneath them, all this CIA station chief secrecy stuff. Hell, I'm only over here because I'm in trouble in the VA anyway.
Members of the media, do not panic. Your show prep will continue with Rush on the EIB network.
This is my home.
News 95.7 and AM 1290 WHIO.
Mailing and shipping can seem like a no-win situation. The post office takes too much time and postage meter.
We now join live Fox News coverage of President Obama from the White House Rose Garden addressing the withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan.
For the extraordinary sacrifices they make on behalf of our security. I was also able to meet with our commanding general and ambassador to review the progress that we've made. And today I'd like to update the American people on the way forward in Afghanistan and how this year we will bring America's longest war to a responsible end. The United States did not seek this fight. We went into Afghanistan out of necessity after our nation was attacked by Al-Qaeda on September 11th, 2001. We went to war against Al-Qaeda and its extremist allies with the strong support of the American people and their representatives in Congress, with the international community and our NATO allies, and with the Afghan people who welcomed the opportunity of a life free from the dark tyranny of extremism. We have now been in Afghanistan longer than many Americans expected. But make no mistake, thanks to the skill and sacrifice of our troops, diplomats, and intelligence professionals, we have struck significant blows against Al-Qaeda's leadership. We have eliminated Osama bin Laden, and we've prevented Afghanistan from being used to launch attacks against our homeland. We've also supported the Afghan people as they continue the hard work of building a democracy. We've extended more opportunities to their people, including women and girls. And we've helped train and equip their own security forces. Now we're finishing the job we started. Over the last several years, we've worked to transition security responsibilities to the Afghans. 1 year ago, Afghan forces assumed the lead for combat operations. Since then, they've continued to grow in size and in strength while making huge sacrifices for their country. This transition has allowed us to steadily draw down our own forces from a peak of 100,000 U.S. troops to roughly 32,000 today. 2014, therefore, is a pivotal year. Together with our allies and the Afghan government, we have agreed that this is the year we will conclude our combat mission in Afghanistan. This is also a year of political transition in Afghanistan. Earlier this spring, Afghans turned out in the millions to vote in the first round of their presidential election, defying threats in order to determine their own destiny. And in just over 2 weeks, they will vote for their next president. And Afghanistan will see its first democratic transfer of power in history. In the context of this progress, having consulted with Congress and my national security team, I've determined the nature of the commitment that America is prepared to make beyond 2014. Our objectives are clear: disrupting threats posed by Al-Qaeda, supporting Afghan security forces, and giving the Afghan people the opportunity to succeed as they stand on their own. Here's how we'll pursue those objectives. First, America's combat mission will be over by the end of this year. Starting next year, Afghans will be fully responsible for securing their country. American personnel will be in an advisory role. We will no longer patrol Afghan cities or towns, mountains or valleys. That is a task for the Afghan people. Second, I've made it clear that we're open to cooperating with Afghans on two narrow missions after 2014: training Afghan forces and supporting counterterrorism operations against the remnants of Al-Qaeda. Today I want to be clear about how the United States is prepared to advance those missions. At the beginning of 2015, We will have approximately 98,000 U.S. Let me start that over, just because I want to make sure we don't get this written wrong. At the beginning of 2015, we will have approximately 9,800 U.S. service members in different parts of the country, together with our NATO allies and other partners. By the end of 2015, we will have reduced that presence by roughly half, and we'll have consolidated our troops in Kabul and on Bagram Airfield. 1 year later, by the end of 2016, our military will draw down to a normal embassy presence in Kabul with a security assistance component, just as we've done in Iraq. Now, even as our troops come home, the international community will continue to support Afghans as they build their country for years to come. But our relationship will not be defined by war. It will be shaped by our financial and development assistance, as well as our diplomatic support. Our commitment to Afghanistan is rooted in the strategic partnership that we agreed to in 2012, and this plan remains consistent with discussions we've had with our NATO allies. Just as our allies have been with us every step of the way in Afghanistan, we expect that our allies will be with us going forward. Third, we will only sustain this military presence after 2014 if the Afghan government signs the bilateral security agreement that our two governments have already negotiated. This agreement is essential to give our troops the authorities they need to fulfill their mission while respecting Afghan sovereignty. The two final Afghan candidates in the runoff election for president have each indicated that they would sign this agreement promptly after taking office. So I'm hopeful that we can get this done. The bottom line is, it's time to turn the page on more than a decade in which so much of our foreign policy was focused on the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. When I took office, we had nearly 180,000 troops in harm's way. By the end of this year, we will have less than 10,000. In addition to bringing our troops home, this new chapter in American foreign policy will allow us to redirect some of the resources saved by ending these wars to respond more nimbly to the changing threat of terrorism, while addressing a broader set of priorities around the globe. I think Americans have learned that it's harder to end wars than it is to begin them. Yet this is how wars end in the 21st century. Not through signing ceremonies, but through decisive blows against our adversaries, transitions to elected governments, security forces who are trained to take the lead, and ultimately full responsibility. We remain committed to a sovereign, secure, stable, and unified Afghanistan. And toward that end, we will continue to support Afghan-led efforts to promote peace in their country through reconciliation. We have to recognize Afghanistan will not be a perfect place. And it is not America's responsibility to make it one. The future of Afghanistan must be decided by Afghans. But what the United States can do, what we will do, is secure our interests and help give the Afghans a chance, an opportunity, to seek a long overdue and hard-earned peace. America will always keep our commitments to friends and partners who step up, and we will never waver in our determination to deny al-Qaeda the safe haven that they had before 9/11. That commitment is embodied by the men and women in and out of uniform who serve in Afghanistan today and who have served in the past. In their eyes, I see the character that sustains American security and our leadership abroad. These are mostly young people who did not hesitate to volunteer in a time of war. And as many of them begin to transition to civilian life, we will keep the promise we make to them and to all veterans and make sure they get the care and benefits that they have earned and deserve. This 9/11 generation is part of an unbroken line of heroes who give up the comfort of the familiar to serve a half a world away, to protect their families and communities back home, and to give people they never thought they'd meet the chance to live a better life. It is an extraordinary sacrifice for them and for their families. But we shouldn't be surprised that they're willing to make it. That's who we are as Americans. That's what we do. Tomorrow I'll travel to West Point and speak to America's newest class of military officers to discuss how Afghanistan fits into our broader strategy going forward. And I'm confident that if we carry out this approach, we can not only responsibly end our war in Afghanistan and achieve the objectives that took us to war in the first place, we'll also be able to begin a new chapter in the story of American leadership around the world. Thanks very much.
You've been listening to President Obama addressing the Afghani situation and the drop